The voices are back after defeating the jinx of the year 2020 with the episode 20. Welcome one and all to the ThyGap podcast episode 2121. This is the most lovable host in the face of podcast being brewed, and with me, the one and only, the 1.5 and only, the 2.5 and only, and in about like 6 months, the 7.5 and only
Bogus Noog.
Bogus Noog. What's up, my dear friend? How are you after the what do you call that? I don't know, momentous episode 20.
I'm doing good. How about you, bro?
I was a crisp answer.
I know.
Very crisp. It's almost like it was not yours.
Yeah, I like to be concise.
Yeah, concise you are, except for the rate at which you are growing and filling up that chair. Rest of everything is concise, starting from your IQ to your thinking capability, and most importantly, your memory of the recent past. As we all know how forgetful you can get.
Of course, I keep learning every day, so there's only this limited real estate,
Now that you've mentioned about your real estate, let me put that to test.
Sure, go
I'm
ahead.
going to throw some words and I want answers for them.
Shoot.
Instagram,
@_ThyGap.
Twitter,
@ThyGap.
Facebook.
ThyGap it is?
Pretty good. You've been
Wow.
working on those almond diets, is it?
Not bad, not
Omega
bad.
343, 369, whatever is that helps you improve your IQ.
Oh, yeah.
Intense. So bogus.
I mean, these are things that no one should forget,
Yeah, bogus. We are deleting that sentence. So
Okay.
bogus. We are here in the episode 21.
Yes, we are.
We broke the jinx of 20.
Thankfully, yeah, we did.
Touchwood, with all the love and grace and blessings of our audience.
Yes.
We went through that, which is amazing.
Dear listeners,
Any messages for them?
I think if they can hold on just a little bit, we're going to have a lot more to say to them directly in the next one.
Great. That was once again pretty concise and absolutely no meaning. So I'm going to jump straight in.
Jump it.
Do you know what I'm jumping into?
I have no clue.
Very good. That's the topic.
I just heard you're going to jump, and my first inclination was, Brute, please.
Don't jump.
You should have jumped yesterday. Jump.
The deep, dark secrets of Bogus Noog and his way of...
It was a Freudian
well-wishing
slip.
me.
Yeah.
What is a Freudian slip?
It's like,
Why do you have to keep throwing this complicated sentences?
life is all about learning, It's like the truth was hidden inside. I didn't want to say it, but it just slipped out. Out.
You could have said spilling the beans. Why do you have to act like all posh with Freudian slip?
I'm allergic to beans.
So that restricts you from the vocabulary?
I mean, it doesn't come into my vocabulary for that reason.
Intense. What else are you allergic to?
For now, I'm just going to say beans.
Thanks for those beans of your allergy.
Sure. Of course.
So bogus, without any further ado,
Yes.
let's get to business because we are two extremely serious people.
Of course.
Who mean business.
Two extremely serious people who started a comedy podcast.
A comedy podcast where we are still in the quest of finding the comedy
I know.
in the podcast.
We'll find it.
We'll find
somewhere.
it.
Yeah.
That's where we have high hopes.
Yeah.
And a lot of self-belief and determination.
Mm-hmm.
But all that comes from one place. But intuition it is. Today's topic.
Yep. As we promised in the last episode.
In the last episode.
Yeah.
Yes, very true. We are two men of
our
word.
word. Yes.
Yes. And interesting topic, I guess, once again.
Very interesting. Little understood. Very little.
By the common crowd.
Yeah.
Or do you have like a specific set of people who you think who understand little of intuition?
I mean, your neighbors understand it the least, but I was talking about the common crowd. Yes.
The common crowd.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think the same. I think I'm going to, off the bat, quote what Steve Jobs told his biographer, which is a story which you shared with me about, I don't know,
5 minutes back.
5 minutes back, which is after he came back from India, he went and told his biographer that a lot of people in India seem to be working more on intuition when compared to people in the West.
Yes.
Which is a big thing for a guy like Steve Jobs to say.
Well, yeah.
And also an uncanny observation which shows his particular,
Oh,
mantle that,
exactly.
this guy spent 7 months and that's what he figured out, that people here work on intuition.
Well, yeah, I mean, it does say something about him because his initial goal for coming to India was to, what do they call
Do
it?
the Rufus.
Find himself,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff, why people usually come here. But
Especially when there is so much of crowd, you can be so lost that you have to find yourself.
you have to find yourself, like, where am I?
Yeah, like,
Oh.
what's happening?
Am I in Kukatpalli or am I in Kachiguda?
Like, how many bodies am I carrying right now? Like,
Exactly.
how many hands are on me?
Yeah. So he roamed around this country for about 7 months and he went back and he basically said he learned intuition.
Which is a big thing. And unfortunately, that doesn't seem to be replicated by us on who he was commenting. What I mean by that is, I don't think a lot of people actually work on intuition as much as they can.
Well, going by what he said, probably they do over here. And that may be the natural way of how our people go through life, which is they go a lot by their gut.
Yeah.
And we do have big guts.
Yeah. We have
Wherever you see.
enormous. The only next people who are close to our guts are probably, I don't know, which is a well-fed country. I can't think of any. Anyways.
But let's start with what it means. Just for the sake of our listeners, if it's a new word you're hearing, if it sounds like Greek and Latin, no, I probably derived from there. But
like any other English word.
Yeah, like any other English word. But what it means, Brute, what is your definition of it?
Of intuition?
Yeah.
A pure thought, which doesn't need any more dissection. It is already directional. It already has a direction, so you don't have to think of. It's a complete pure thought. That's how I would put it. I know it doesn't fit any textbook definition, but how I would describe an intuition is it's a complete pure thought where you just have to execute it. You don't have to do anything else. It's like a ready-made decision given to you, depending on the context, obviously.
Right. And I also think it marks the first time in this podcast where probably your answer is more complicated than mine.
I've been working behind the doors.
Yeah, I can see. So, yeah, my definition of intuition is more like an insight or a judgment or a conclusion that you reach, but you reached it immediately, like a gut feeling, like they say. You haven't really put any
effort into
any calculation into it. You haven't applied any logical reasoning, but for some reason, something tells you that this is the way to go.
Yeah, it's almost like it's almost like, what do you say, a milestone. When you're traveling on the highway.
Yeah, okay.
What are they? The milestones.
Milestones,
right?
yeah.
So it's just like the moment you see a milestone, there's no more thinking. It's like, I have to take a ride to, say, go to Boston. You just take the ride. It's almost like you have complete faith in it. You just don't know why.
Right. I'm not sure that even a milestone example applies to intuition.
It's a bad example.
Because
you don't have to rub it on my face, bogus.
I will.
It's a bad example.
Well,
forget about it.
It's all for the benefit of our listeners.
For a guy who forgets things easily, in fact, forgets sentences in the middle of it, I think this should be an easy thing for you to forget a bad example of mine.
It's all for the benefit of our listeners, just the reason why milestone...
I don't see any audience
probably
for
does
rub
not
it
apply.
on Brute's face.
No, I get letters.
Oh, you get written by yourself?
No, you don't know. mindthyGap@gmail.com.
Oh, yeah.
That's our email address where people write to us.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, no wonder you didn't give me the password for that email.
Of course not.
Got it. Now I know why my Instagram followers are reducing day by day.
So basically, intuition in colloquial sense, to better understand it, is what they say, a gut feeling. If you ever have a gut feeling about something, but you can't explain it with logic or reasoning, but you just know something inside you is telling you very strongly that this is the way to go, or that's the path to choose, or that's the selection to make, etc., etc.
Why are you repeating yourself?
I'm just trying
Why
to
are you making yourself sound important?
bring it to colloquial sense.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Just for better understanding.
But I have an even more colloquial question,
Okay.
which a lot of people have in their mind.
Okay, go ahead. Shoot.
What do you think is the Sanskrit/Hindi word for intuition?
Well, the Sanskrit word for intuition seems to be buddhi.
Huh.
And what they mean by that is a higher intelligence. And that is very different from intellect. But intuition, they say, is buddhi, higher intelligence. And that's also what one tries to attain by doing yoga or meditation.
No,
or
that
things
is all
like
fine. But
Yeah.
it's called buddhi, is it?
Buddhi, yeah.
Isn't buddhi behavior?
Not in the Sanskrit sense, at least not in the way
Because
that they used
say
it.
na, तुम्हारा बुद्धि भ्रष्ट हो गए का?
Yeah, that is the bastardized degradation of language. You know,
By Netflix and Amazon Prime.
where definitions are slightly more fluid and they keep moving around.
No, but it is a colloquial usage, right? Buddhi भ्रष्ट हो गए is like a colloquial usage.
Yeah,
every
but-
teacher says it too. Every Hindi teacher at least.
Probably, but what I'm saying is in the ancient time, the way they used buddhi or their understanding of buddhi basically coincides with intuition.
Oh, so it's self-explanatory, right? In a way, if buddhi is the higher intelligence,
Right.
what is the basic intelligence according to Sanskrit?
Not sure, but they do.
Jnanam?
I think so, yeah.
Jnana. I guess.
Probably, yeah. Because they do make that distinction between lower intelligence and higher intelligence. And that's also where what coincides with that distinction or classification is religion and spirituality, where religion is what you start with,
Yeah.
what you need to start with at least,
Yeah.
to be able to get to.
Well, I don't, again, that's something that I disagree, but
Yeah.
okay.
But that's what they say, which is spirituality is the higher intelligence, basically.
Yeah. But, okay, so basically it's Gyan and Jnanam and Buddhi.
I'm guessing about Jnana.
Maybe,
Buddhi,
yeah.
I'm sure.
So
but,
if anybody knows the answer for what is the normal intelligence called like in Sanskrit, then you should
write to us.
write to us. Yeah.
Yeah.
Make us smarter.
Mm.
Okay. Did you have any experiences of intuition?
Yeah, quite a few.
So how did it play out?
The biggest, the most relevant example I can give is what got ThyGap started was intuition in my case. And there's a story behind it. I'm not sure if you want me to go into that story or not.
No, tell the story because I'm not able to place it.
So, okay, for the benefit of our listeners.
Okay.
All right. So this was a time when I was casually checking out theater plays in Hyderabad because personal interest. And I had also done plays in school.
And also Tinder wasn't great in Hyderabad.
It never worked out for me anyways. So I wanted to go to a few plays in Hyderabad. When I started watching them, many of them tended to be more or less Shakespeare based or, some script or story that you already heard of. And all you were seeing was different actors
doing the same.
given their own performance or their own interpretation of what it is.
Yeah.
And for me, there was also a hunger for originality because I was paying money to watch these plays.
Yeah.
Although it was not a lot, but it was still...
Money is money.
Money is money, right?
Yeah.
So as a paying audience, I wanted to see something original. And there were very few people or theater groups that were pursuing originality for the sake of pursuing originality. And I respected that. And you, Brute, happened to be a part of one of those groups.
Let's just give a shout out to Underdog Plays.
It was called Underdog Entertainment.
Underdog Productions. Yeah, Underdog Entertainment Productions. It's run by a very dear friend of mine. It was started by a very dear friend of mine called Chai, who's also Chaitanya. He is the third wheel in the movie Brahman Naman,
yeah.
whose leg is broken. He is that guy. Fantastic actor. I think he didn't do justice in the movie. He's a much better actor than that. And also in movies,
Movies,
scope is
it's a
limited,
very dicey
but
thing.
that guy is the guy who actually I think changed or gave that extra flavor in the Hyderabad theatre scene at that point. They were based out of Bangalore. And
Yeah,
he was doing
based
plays
out
in
of Bangalore. And I can describe this from an audience perspective, which is Underdog Plays were some of the only plays that were packed at that point of time.
Oh, jam-packed.
Jam-packed. And that was either because their sense of humor tended to be controversial, a little bit edgy and racy. But I'm guessing it was also because it was original. They were not rehashing stories that have been in place for centuries now,
Yeah.
And they picked their plays on contemporary topics like social media or
a lot of things like dating, contemporary dating,
right? So
social media.
they had a pull with the young audience, and that's of course where I come in.
Yeah.
The youth. But my draw to Underdog was because they were prioritizing originality, and after that, I didn't care whether I liked the play or not. At least it was an experiment.
Yeah.
At least it was original. It was an attempt to do something new, and that's what I respected. So one of these plays, I happened to be in the audience, and I watched Brute come on stage, and I had not really seen him before or known anything about him, or even known that he existed. I watched Brute on stage for about, I think it couldn't have been more than about 5 minutes or so, because it was a come in and go out kind of thing. It was not a long monologue, but it was a comedy play, and there were a lot of players. I could see that I could easily make out, okay, these actors are good. These guys are not really, they're more casuals. They're just IT professionals who want a hobby.
Yeah, yeah.
But then when I watched Brute perform, I could see that there was an intent to entertain the audience. There was an intent to perform. And as a performer myself, I recognize game kind of thing.
Yeah.
I saw that and I thought, okay, this guy is clearly standing out among all the other people, at least, even though there are still one or two people, like you mentioned, Chai himself, who has a very strong screen presence, stage presence. And he's also a very good director from what I've seen. So even though one or two people were good in my eyes, Brute still stood out. And immediately I thought, okay, this guy is interesting. The way he's approaching his character, the way he is delivering his dialogues, the way he's pausing for effect, and the way he's also including the audience into the play. Because the rest of the actors, it's a very delicate thing that stage actors at least may not realize, that because there's a lack of separation between screen, what you usually have with screen, stage is it's a much more interactive kind of medium. So as an actor, if you are aware of that, and if you know how to play with that additional dimension, then that really sets you apart. Yeah. And so when I saw that, I thought, okay, this guy is interesting, and maybe this is someone I want to do something with in future. And at that point of time, I was still thinking about starting a group or with like-minded people to either do theater or whatever it is. Now it's manifested in the form of a podcast, but there are other things as well in plan. So I wanted to basically find a partner, and I wanted that to be the right kind of decision, because with things like this, you can't really be walking in and out of wrong decisions, especially with partners. You have to pick the right one. So I thought, okay, this guy is interesting, and I think he's someone I want to collaborate with. And that's about it. I just left it there because I also have a habit of testing my intuition.
Yeah, which is what I want to tell. That bogus, after all this emotional story, you didn't even bother connecting with me after that.
Yeah.
It was purely by chance. And I think it's about a year later, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
Approximately a year and a half later is when we ended up doing a play together.
Yeah.
And I was introduced to you as one of the cast members of the play. And then we started to, have conversations.
Yes.
And we spoke everything and anything under the sun.
Yeah.
And I think one of the I mean, in my case, when I speak about intuition, that I had and how I experienced that with respect to you was that one session which I can never forget.
Wait. Let me complete my story first.
Okay, fine.
Because I'm not
God.
done. The intuition has not been proven yet.
Okay.
So I got the gut feeling, and it was quite a strong gut feeling because I had watched a number of plays by then, and I was seeing the same repetitive faces.
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, this guy is interesting, but let's see. Let's see if it's really meant to be. And so I left it there. So what Brute means by Bogus made no effort to connect
Yeah.
is
like abandon.
after the play is done, usually the audience walks up to the actors and the director and basically pays compliments.
If he likes them.
If they like the
most of
play,
time.
they meet up with that particular actor and they say, hey, your performance was great. So I didn't do any of that. I basically watched the play, and as soon as it was done, I left the place.
He walked off.
I walked out thinking the same thing, which is, let's see, because I like to test my intuition.
And just want to add something, especially for the underdog plays. I mean, I've done a lot of plays with other, production houses or whatever we call them, theater groups. Never did I ever experience that celebrity kind of a feel, or the feel that you get.
Right.
Where after generally you finish the play, it's hardly about a bunch of people who will come to you and say like, "Hey, dude, I really liked your acting," or "I like the play. Congrats, blah blah blah. When is your next play?" Blah.
Yeah.
But when it came to an underdog play, you almost had to spend like about a good half an hour.
Yeah.
Like waiting at the stage, so that you're done with, acknowledging everybody's wishes, because. Out of all the people, there were a lot of people who bothered to stay back and actually appreciate the actors. That's the kind of effect underdog plays had.
That's true. That's true.
So you not getting affected by that peer pressure was also another thing.
Yeah, because I didn't want to corrupt it at that point of time. I wanted to test its purity, the intuition. I did not want to corrupt it by introducing myself to you and then whatever happens after that. I wanted to see how good this is.
Right.
How much of a strong intuition this is. And that's why I deliberately left it there, because my confidence was, I'm going to keep watching plays.
Yeah.
And if this guy is doing so well on the stage, he's bound to be showing up again.
Right.
So I'm going to see him again probably.
Right.
And that's...
But alas.
Yeah, that's the confidence with which
other plans.
I left. And after that, I never saw Brute again on the stage. But it so happened that after about 9 months or 10 months or whatever, close to a year later, a friend of mine told me that there's a play going on. You always are interested. You keep watching in the audience. Do you want to act in it? Yeah, be a part of it. And I was like, hell yeah.
Yeah.
I want to do this. I want to try. Because until then, even I had some fear of actually doing it. But then when he said, hey, do you want to try it? I was like, yeah, you give me this opportunity. I'm going to grab it. So I accepted. And then the first day of that play rehearsal, when we were supposed to meet up, I see who's there? Brute. I see him as one
Sipping
of the...
on my coffee.
Yeah.
Smoke under my feet. There was lightning around.
Okay, let's not push it. Don't push it now. But I saw Brute there. And the minute I saw Brute there, I was like, okay. Now, this is my validation. What I did, I left my intuition there hanging. But now, even though it took 9 or 10 months, I'm okay with it because this is the validation. And that gave me a strong idea that there's something definitely going on here. And there's something definitely to this. It is still not 100% by that point because I have still not had a proper conversation with Brute. I've still not exchanged ideas with Brute. I have no idea if he's just a casual like all the other people. Not all the other people, but most other people. I had no idea how serious his intentions were about the art form or whatever. So that was still left for me to check and verify.
You basically didn't know me back then.
I didn't know you at all. All I knew was that I liked the performance. And all I knew that I could see the intent behind the performance. And that was more important for me. So now we come to the part you were saying where we had a conversation, etc. So take it away from here.
So we had, I'll give you a little download of how my approach was at that point. I was introduced to Bogus, and I still remember very clearly the first thing I told to Bogus, but I don't know if you remember what.
Oh, I remember.
So
it was the most ridiculous opening phrases I've ever heard in my life.
All those intuition bullshit, I almost washed it away with that one sentence.
Yeah, kind of.
I went to Bogus straight, and everybody was like, "Hey, he's Bogus, and he's playing this particular part, blah blah blah." And I go up to him, and I'm like, "Hey, Bogus, you look very rich. I need money." And then Bogus goes quiet for some time, and then he kind of takes his time as usual to respond.
Right.
And he was like, he was being very nice to me at that point, and he was like, "How much money do you need?" And then everybody came to his rescue, saying that don't give Brute money. He took money already from everybody. So that's how it started. And then I fucked around with his brain for some time about the character, and I told you he's supposed to be a Russian guy, whereas he doesn't. He
in the
didn't have to
rehearsal,
do anything, and the rehearsal started, and Bogus, being the professional, started doing the character in a Russian accent,
and the director was looking at me like, "What is wrong with this guy?
What is happening here? This is supposed to be an Indian play. Where the hell is this Russian cape?" And Bogus once again very naively pointed at me and it's like, "But Brute told me that's a Russian character."
Yeah.
And then about 7 people ran behind me for ruining the rehearsal. But having said all that...
See, the way you performed on stage, I would have never imagined that he would have taken me for a ride like that, which is just before the reading is starting. And it's the first reading, by the way.
Yeah.
Impressions are being made for the first time with everyone else. I don't know anyone in that room except for my friend who brought me into that play. So
and he himself is a very professional actor.
Oh yeah.
Like even in the readings, he is so professional. He goes into the character. He's doing all this nonsense. And I, for one, was a guy who never prepared for a character.
I mean, I got to know that later.
Which a lot of people didn't expect. But anyways, long story short, so there's this one session where, in theater groups, it's a common practice that there are these group activities to build the harmoniousness of all the actors.
Yeah, because everyone's new. So
everybody is new.
Yeah,
so
icebreaker kind of thing.
It's kind of an icebreaker thing.
Yeah.
But it was a little shocking for me at that point that this supposedly group session was a meditation session.
Kind of, yeah.
And this was the point, as usual, I was sitting at the end. And Bogus was probably about like 2 paces away.
No, I was sitting right beside you.
Beside me.
Right beside you, yeah.
And for some reason, everybody was, closing their eyes and doing the whole meditation bit.
Yeah.
For some reason, it kicked into me that, hey, check out Bogus. Mm-hmm. He isn't doing it either.
Right.
That's all I got. That was all that voice said in my head. I turned my head towards you and voila.
I was looking at you.
Staring at me wide awake. Like his eyes wide open. He was staring at me. And almost instantly, we started like giggling like 2 idiotic school kids. And we walked out of the session or something. We had enough of it. We were going out for a smoke break and we kind of walked off.
Yeah.
And that's when we started to talk like real talk.
Yeah.
And those conversations started increasing in length. But I think that was a moment where among all the 14, 15 actors which are there in that play, I really connected with Bogus. Not in any other sense, but the fact that we shared a lot in common. But at the same time, we had the same understanding of these things.
Right.
So, what I like, okay, coming to the bottom line, right? What happens is intuitions don't, as intuitions are known to act immediately.
Yeah.
At the same time, there are certain set of intuitions which take their own sweet time to like play out their whole game.
Right.
Like convey the complete message. And it definitely happens that it doesn't happen from one side. It also happens from both the sides. Like if there are 2 people involved into the similar kind of a thing, it works out for both of them too.
Well, I think it depends. I mean, it's a very personal thing, whether you are intuitive or not. If you're not an intuitive sort of person, you're never going to see the signs or even hear the messages, basically.
Yeah, it is like an antenna, right? Like if you are a receiving antenna, you might also become a transmitting antenna. It's as simple as that. Like, I mean, that is the best analogy I can give.
Yeah.
Is if it's like a phone, you can do incoming and outgoing, but you have to be a phone first to do that. You have to have the SIM card.
Right.
So we chose this topic, I'm just putting it out on the table, is intuition is important because the fact, apart from all the other glitter glamour about how intuition is makes you special, how it keeps you ahead of the game, and etc., etc. The base thing an intuition does is it gives you a lot of self-belief
Yes.
that what you are going for is the right thing.
Yes.
So for all the people, right, and it stands true for me also, and I think I can speak on your behalf, Bogus.
Don't.
That if I will, if there's a direction in which you want to go, intuitions work as a very good checklist or a yardstick
Yeah.
for you to know that whether that direction is the right one or not.
Yeah, because up until the 20th century, Western science did not even allow for any discussion on intuition.
Is it?
Yeah. So whoever their contemporaries were, who were pointing to this and saying there is something here, there's a metaphysical element which we're not able to explain. Should we study that? They were immediately shunned.
Shunned away.
Shunned away.
Why not?
But now they're trying to make a big thing out of it, like, oh, intuition
They
is this,
discovered
that.
it.
Yeah.
Typical Western behavior. They come late to the party and try to own the party.
Exactly.
But that's new for me. I didn't know this.
Yeah,
I
that's true.
thought intuition was an integral part of psychology.
And now they're trying to, again, what are they trying to do? They're trying to measure it. They're trying
Like
to
how
measure.
much of an intuition do you get?
Yeah, they're trying to measure something which is subjective.
Yeah.
Fool's errand, if you ask me.
Yeah.
The whole point of intuition is you're not supposed to spend a lot of time in that. Measuring, calculating.
It's like motivation, right?
Yeah.
Like you shouldn't be so motivated at just being motivated. That's all.
Exactly.
Like you got to get going, get the job done.
Exactly.
But yeah, once you get the taste of how an intuition works, you start craving for it more and just want to figure out where do you get it from and how do you get more of it.
Yeah, and it's said that also animals have intuition in the sense that when they are in the jungle and they suddenly sense danger,
Yeah.
that's nothing but
It's
intuition.
like the spidey sense.
Yeah, they don't see the threat clearly, but even without seeing it, they just sense that something is wrong.
When do you see these intuitions coming?
Because it's an unconscious activity or rather subconscious kind of activity, there's no controlling when it comes, I think.
But can you say what you were going through when you got it?
Well, a clear need. If you have identified a clear need within yourself, okay, this is what I want. And if you're visualizing that at least I think sets the ball in motion, which is it kind of takes you to that place where you probably will get. That is, again, if you are an intuitive sort of person, if you have that capacity.
I think everybody has the potential to be intuitive.
Everyone has it.
And I think everybody does experience intuition, but it's just about whether do they recognize it or not. That's a secondary question.
Yes.
Sometimes,
also, it's like a muscle that needs to be trained.
Yeah, to understand what it is.
Yeah, the more you train it, the more clear you see it.
Like for me, whenever I got an intuition, right, all I remember was how absorbed I was.
Right.
And doesn't matter what I was absorbed in. I have to be, I was always supremely absorbed in what I was doing.
Right.
Like it was almost like unidimensional focus.
Right.
And when everything kind of like blurred out for me, it's like the fisheye kind of a concept. And I don't have to be in there for a long time.
Yeah.
I don't have to be there for like an hour or 2 hours or anything.
Yeah.
It's just that it's a very small window of absolute focus, and boom, it kicks in.
Yeah. So in other words, a clear need. Like when you're supremely focused, that clarity that you have, that one task that you're doing, that allows for the gates to open. I feel.
And the magnitude of these intuitions also vary. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's about very elementary things, like the one which I had with you. It was just about saying that look at Bogus. Just turn your head, open your eyes, and look at Bogus because he's looking at you almost. Whenever I get an intuition, the thing that I observe is, like I said, it's a unidimensional focus, and it is almost, I don't want to use the word, but it is almost like surreal.
It is, yeah.
You are in that surreal state of mind where you're extremely conscious or you're unconscious, or I don't know how do you put that. It's just that thing that you can't relate with often.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you have to be in a surreal state of mind for that to come, but I do agree that the very experience of getting an intuition about something is a surreal experience.
Yeah.
You can't explain. It's almost paranormal.
Yeah. And it's also overwhelming.
Yes. It depends, but it can be.
Again, like the magnitude, right?
The magnitude,
If it's a very strong intuition about something very important in your life, then it almost gets overwhelming. It's like there's a burden lifted off you.
Right.
And you're like, oh, I've carried this thing on my chest, which kind of bogged me down all these days. And now that I figured it out, it's like I'm almost free. Like the chains are off, all bets are off. You're just like, now you don't have to worry about it anymore. And that becomes very overwhelming.
Yeah.
That almost makes you feel like, oh my God, do I need to be in this podcast with bogus type?
Right. So, I mean, I'm also thinking of instances where I don't remember the details, but there have been instances where people were, for example, scheduled to go on a certain flight.
Yeah.
But the last minute, for some reason, they changed their plans.
Change their mind, yeah.
And the flight actually crashes with no survivors.
Yeah.
And, it's just spooky how that happens. But it's a major force of life, intuition. And I do believe, I agree that it is a higher intelligence that can be tapped by anyone.
Where does intuition come from?
From within.
Yeah, where?
I don't know. Your intelligence or your...
If you don't know where it comes from...
No, in the Indian scriptures, they link intuition with the soul.
Exactly.
Yes.
Because what is soul?
Okay, is this another of these quiz? Why don't you just answer the question?
Okay, soul is, according to me, it's basically a ball of energy, right? And the depiction of energy in any form, literature, which is worth its salt, energy is thought.
Okay.
Right? Thoughts carry energy. That's how they manifest themselves into a reality. Okay? Now, if a soul is giving you an intuition, the soul is all known. It has all the thoughts that ever existed or are going to exist out there. Only thing is, we don't know how to communicate with it directly. So, there is some element in us which is able to translate the thought in the purest form without the ego coming into the picture. Because the moment ego comes into the picture, it starts evaluating a thought, which is what happens to us on a daily basis.
Right.
If you are hungry, like I gave you the example,
right.
The ego tells you like, no, this is not a high quality restaurant. Go to that restaurant or whatever. I want to eat this. Intuition, when an intuition kicks in, there is no I. It's just like, do it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So the ego factor is nullified there.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what is the whole game about, if you look at it on a bigger scale. That the soul has to communicate to you in its purest form. And which is also why I feel that intuition is the purest thought that you can ever perceive.
Yeah, it is.
Right? So therefore, the pure thought is not dependent on a logic or a reason or a rational. Because it's not evaluating any of this, because it is creating its own context. A pure thought, when it gets manifested, right?
Okay.
Are you seeing my wow factor in the speech?
No, please go ahead.
Yeah. So like when a pure thought is manifested, it doesn't care for what is the existing scenario. It creates a scenario which is supremely suited to you. Okay? And where you can excel.
Okay.
Right? Therefore, it is not dependent on logic or reason or rational. It doesn't care about all these things. It is beyond all these things. We find it easier to understand that particular thought or the pure thought by applying all these things. Otherwise, we don't understand, because we are so curious to understand, oh, why did I not get this before, bro? Like, why now? Wow, it's amazing. I want to get more of this. Let me try to look back at this thought which I got, or this intuition that I got, and try to decode this as to how I got it, where did I get it from. Right. Now, when you look on the hindsight, you can always create a logic because you have both the points. You have the start point and the end point. Now, you put any direction to it, you can somehow justify it. Which is where I feel it is also wrong to actually decode an intuition. The best thing to do is embrace an intuition, execute it, and get done with it. Move on. Like, don't sit back and evaluate, oh, this was my intuition. What do I do with this? Where did I get it from? Like, how, blah, blah, blah.
For starters, I would agree that the best thing to do with a strong gut feeling, at least, not a weak one, but a strong gut feeling, is to act on it. And then evaluate the results for yourself. If the results align with your intuition or not. If they do align,
Evaluate how? I want you to explain that also a little more. As to what do you mean by evaluate the result?
well, in our own example,
Yeah.
my intuition said this guy could be my partner in something.
Yeah.
And here we are doing a podcast. And we plan to do many more other things. So that's an evaluation. For me, this is a validation that, okay, my intuition is proving to be right, you know?
Yeah, but you were still acting on it. You didn't discard it.
No, I didn't discuss.
So
That's what I'm
basically,
saying.
you acted on it. What is the evaluation process?
After evaluation is just to verify was my gut feeling right or
Okay,
not?
that is fair.
know?
That is fair.
Yeah.
But do you want to decode your intuition as to why this came?
No.
Like, right?
No, it's pointless.
So
As long as, I got my validation, as long as I can see that my intuition was right or my gut feeling was right, I don't need to go into why it.
exactly. So in the same context, right? In the same setup, rather, I am saying that we tend to complicate, or we tend to what do you say? Glorify.
Overanalyze.
Overanalyze. Yeah, that's the word.
Right.
Overanalyze an intuition by all these peripheral parameters which we understand. We as human beings, right, are designed to understand things through logic or through a reason or through a validation or all these things.
Consciously.
Or like a proof of concept type.
Consciously, yes.
Yeah, right? So, but intuition doesn't work like that.
No, it is
Intuition
unconscious.
it is supremely, I think it's supreme conscious, or what is the superlative of? There is unconscious, there's subconscious, conscious, whatever. There's whatever is above consciousness, right? And that's how it works. And in that place, these things don't exist. These things are there created by us so that we understand things. Why does a wheel, why does a wheel has to be round? There is a logic to it that we create. There's friction, there is this, there is that. Lesser effort, great. Therefore, wheel has to be round. That is the best possible shape.
Right.
Right? But there are so many other things that we don't understand, and logic continuously fails us there.
See, what I think is ultimately you and I are on the same page.
Yeah.
However, in different paragraphs. That's the only difference. Because you seem to think that I said that with intuition, the calculation will happen after the decision is made or something.
No.
I mean that the calculations are subconscious. They lead to intuition happening in the first place.
I don't think that's where I'm saying that even before the intuition comes, what you're saying is the logics and the reasonings and the values that we put in subconsciously are what are influencing how an intuition comes out.
Absolutely.
And I'm saying it's not, that is not the case according to me.
Yeah.
Because intuition doesn't consider all this. And the reason why I'm saying that is because intuition, and I'm talking about strong intuitions. Let's not go into the weaker intuitions category.
Got it.
The stronger intuitions tend to create their own scenarios when they play out. You know? Like in your sense, why did you have to wait 9 months or 1 year to actually validate it? And why did you hang on to it? Like you could have at any point of 1 year after you seeing me, could have thought, you know what, maybe it was a farce. I don't want to let me forget about it, move on, get my group going.
And that was the phase where I was not overanalyzing. Even though I have to admit, I was strongly tempted. That day, even after the play ended, I was strongly tempted to walk up and introduce myself. I didn't do it because I wanted to test my intuition, because in the past, it worked out. And that self-belief I got.
Okay, then I'll ask you, the first time you got it,
right?
What went through? Did you see that did you see any values that you put in that actually made the intuition work or come in?
I don't remember the very first instance, and probably my guess is that, like most other people, I might have gone against my gut. And after the result turned out badly, then I would have realized in hindsight, shit, I should have gone with my gut. That's how we all realize that.
But what I'm saying is, when you got the gut feeling,
right?
Did you see an influence of your own thinking or anything of that sort that actually manifest the intuition?
And this is coming back to one of the other points that you said, which is you spoke about it being pure
Yeah.
and not being corrupted by.
No doping done.
So let me give you an example where this purity thing does not hold ground, which is when I was watching that play and when I got the gut feeling about you, I was not coming from a neutral place. Okay. For a number of years, for about 6 or 7 years, I had the very strong intention of finding a partner. I wanted to find a partner, and not just like any other partner where, hey, we just met at the cafe, let's start something, not like that. I wanted to find a partner who would be a partner for good. And also I wanted to find someone who would be complementary to what I can offer in the ways that I thought I needed to be complemented. Like whatever I could bring to the table, I wanted someone to be able to offer something different to that, so that the overall end product was something more than the sum of our parts.
So in that case...
So let me complete. Okay. So I had a very clear need. It was very clearly defined. It was going on and on in my head. Probably that's why I was going around watching plays, because I thought maybe I'll find my like-minded partner over here. So I was putting that effort. So how can you say this was pure? It was not. My intention was already there. And that intuition, I don't think would have come to me if I had no intention of even finding a partner or looking for a partner. I might have just thought, oh, this guy was great, claps. I enjoyed his performance, claps. Now I'm going to go home. Or I'm going to walk up to the guy and say, hey man, I really liked your performance. Good job. I hope you do more and more plays. And I walk off. That's what it could have been. But the reason why I got that gut feeling, I believe, is because for all those years, I was waiting, I was looking, I was searching.
Then I'll ask you one basic question. What is the difference between visualization and intuition? If you were investing so much of time in visualizing or creating this image of who your prospective, partner in crime would be for a particular need, right? And you're creating this personality in your head, or you're checking off boxes of everything that you need in a partner,
right?
Which will fill the gaps, which will complement, the partnership, etc., etc. What is the difference between visualization and intuition?
Again, I think a great question in this context.
Obviously, bloody nonsense. It's a wrap, a mic drop moment, bloody nonsense. Hey, bro.
Can I answer?
What? Yeah, okay.
So,
because I just want to put my opinion, because I don't want you to think that after your answer, I came up with another smart opinion. Or I changed my opinion, whatever. What I feel, what you're describing is more of a visualization coming true than an intuition. The intuition part, which is very clear, is the move. So intuition doesn't take a lot of time, right? Intuition just happens. Like almost on real time.
Agreed.
It's almost like it's already done types.
Yes.
Right? So when you saw me, right? And when you didn't have to take in a lot of time to like identify or recognize that, hey, maybe this is the guy, right? Let me wait it out. But I have a good feeling about this guy.
Yes.
Right? I want to go about, with this guy. Right? You didn't know my name or whatever. You just didn't care about all those things also.
Yeah.
Because those suddenly become elementary. It almost like, it's like so clear for you that this must be the guy. Right? Now, in visualization, how does a visualization play out? Is the same thing. For example, I always had the personality of my life partner. I've worked on that personality for about a good 8 years, 6 years. Right? And I thought I found that person also, in fact. But obviously, it didn't play out. But when I thought about, okay, the person who's going to marry me, right, who I'm going to marry,
right,
whichever way, is going to have these kind of traits. And it kept happening that I redundantly went to that thought and kept on giving it characteristic, gave it personality, gave it like every kind of scenario, made the character play out scenarios, etc., etc. Right? And finally, when I met my wife, and it didn't take me a lot of time. It was not how I differentiated with an intuition is because I know this person in my head so well, right? The conversation didn't start from the beginning. The conversation started from the middle. There is no evaluation to it. It was almost like I jumped like the first 20 days of conversation and I went straight to fifth date.
Right.
or like sixth date,
Right.
and it still played out.
Right.
And that's how I know that, this is the person who I was thinking about.
Right.
And that's visualization according to me, right? You invest so much into a thought
Right.
that when it actually comes in front of you as an opportunity, you identify it and you pick it. Now, the difference according to me to an intuition is you don't really have to do so much of investment into that particular need. What you have to do is you identify a need,
Yes.
right? And you embrace it, right?
Yes.
And then you go about it. And the intuition, whenever it hits you, you keep yourself open. And this is where I'm explaining, like, how do you appreciate an intuition, right? You keep yourself open or vulnerable to any possibility,
Right.
right? You don't fixate yourself on one possible ending.
Yes.
You just don't know the ending. You don't know the beginning. You don't know what is the middle part, but you know the overall context. Okay, you just have an idea of the overall context. And when the intuition kicks in, it's just like the palace has out of nowhere up. It's like magic, right? It just comes in and that's there. You just have to walk into the palace.
Okay, so
That's
this
the difference.
is how I'm seeing it. In the case of both of our examples,
Yeah.
you can explain it in two different ways, which is, yes, when that moment of intuition happened, it did happen in a fraction of a second. But in both of our cases, there were about 6 to 7 years of that need and that visualization happening.
Correct.
And you maintaining that. You're not dropping the ball on that. You're consistently keeping that going.
Because you have a desired result.
Yes. So to answer your question, which you should have really let me answer, because by now people would have forgotten what that question was.
No, everybody remembers whatever I say. Okay, you don't remember.
Why don't you repeat it and I'll answer?
I said, if that is the case, bogus, then tell me the difference between visualization and an intuition.
So my answer to that is, I don't think it's not a question of difference. Visualization happens to be just another one of those inputs that go into it, along with logic, reasoning, etc., that go into creating an intuition in the end.
I don't even bother explain to
I can
audience
give an
my
example for
expression.
this as well. The same example of when we met the first time.
No, can you just repeat your answer once again between visualization and intuition? You said visualization is another form of input.
No, it's just another input that goes into...
That's what I said. It's
the
another
end.
form of input.
Not another form of input. It is one of the inputs.
That goes into an intuition.
Yeah, that goes alongside logic, reasoning, whatever you can do consciously you're doing. So, but when you do it right, you allow for the unconscious to reward you in a way. Like how they say, hard work, what do they say? 99% perspiration, 1% inspiration. That Edison quote.
I don't know.
Anyways.
I don't follow Edison.
Yeah, you shouldn't follow Edison. No one should follow Edison. But
Just use his bulbs, that's all.
what I mean to say is, in the example that the story that I shared about my intuition about you, my need was strong and defined. I knew what I wanted. I knew what I was looking for. Okay, that is the visualization part of it. That is one of the inputs. The other input was, when you look at logic and reasoning, what did I do? I consciously made a choice to go around to these theater plays. So if I want a partner, obviously that partner is not going to drop on my lap while I'm working in my office. I need to step out and I need to do something or put myself in a situation where I'm more likely to find that person. So logic and reasoning is the input there is, I took an effort, I made an effort to keep going to these plays, keep paying money and not bothering about that money that I'm paying, because I knew what I wanted, I knew what I basically needed. So visualization is covered with the 6 to 7 years of that desire, the strong desire. And another part of logic and reasoning is, for me, it was not just that I wanted a partner. It was that, what do I want this partner to bring to the table? I wanted complementary effect. I did not want addition. I did not want multiplication. Definitely don't want division or subtraction. But I wanted complementary, which is an example for complementary is where Right now, I'm trying to figure out ways to explain intuition well. And then you ask me certain questions, which actually help me to go deeper and explain it better. And that's complementary,
Yeah, but I still...
Is this making sense? Because without that intent or desire, I would have never gotten that intuition in the first place, is what I feel.
I'm still not buying it.
And here
because
is where I will link intuition to things like inspiration and luck, these subjective, undefined things, unconscious things that we don't know how they work. In our episode on inspiration, we discussed that there were two ways that we saw inspiration happening. One is it drops like bird shit, unannounced. And the other one is you can work for it. You can earn it.
Yeah.
So I feel the same way about luck and intuition, which is either you're lucky, you're born with intuition, you got it in your genes from your father or your uncle or whatever.
Yeah.
Or if you don't have that, if you're a completely left-brained person, complete logic and reasoning only, and dissection, because you're so influenced by the Western thought process. If you now wanted to, if you decided, no, I want to increase my intuition muscle, I want to improve my intuition, what are the things that you can do to earn that reward in the end? And I feel you have to start off with these inputs, which is your logic has to be sound, your rationale has to be right, and your visualization has to be constant, unrelenting. So all of these things, when they fall into place, when you do these things right, that allows you to earn that reward, is what I feel.
I have a completely different theory.
Okay.
I don't think any of these actually play a part. On the contrary, so basically, if you're asking me, how do you get yourself, eligible to get intuition, for example?
How do you improve?
Or how do you get an intuition? Like, how do you become a person who can get an intuition if you're not naturally born with it?
Yeah.
I strongly feel there are two elements, or probably three elements that go into building yourself to be a good receptor of intuition.
Mm-hmm.
The first thing is obviously you have to be supremely aware, of yourself, which we've covered in our previous episode of Measure of Man, of how do you become aware.
Yes.
Right? Like, you just need to know what you are as a person.
Yes.
And the composition of yourself. Right?
Right.
Why, how, and all, like, why is that important? Why do you have to know yourself and all? Is because if you don't know your own self, or if you're not aware of your own self, right? How will you even act on a random thought, random strong decision?
Right. How will you make the right decisions for yourself?
How would you even accept that, right? So for you to accept something which is so random and comes out of nowhere, you have to be supremely aware so that you are able to tap the subconscious, or you're able to process whatever your subconscious has to offer for you. Right? That's why you need to be aware. The second thing is, according to me, you have to be extremely empathetic to things around you in general.
Yes.
The reason is, the more it's a kind of a hack for you to know yourself better if you're empathetic. Empathy helps you in knowing yourself faster. Forget about all these social benefits that they say, oh, he's so empathetic, he understands me and all. Leave all that aside. Okay. For one, just forget about all that bullcrap about your social reputation, and just look at it this way, that the more empathetic and the more understanding you are for other people, or even I would go as far as saying being compassionate.
Yeah.
The more compassionate you are towards people, right, the better you are knowing yourself, right? You know your thresholds, you know your patience levels, you know your capacity to accept something or reject something. You have all these things that you start getting aware of, which ultimately is fueling your first need, or your first aspect, which is awareness.
Yeah.
Now, the third thing, which is also, according to me, really important, is don't go behind results. So I, for one, I never worried about the result, right? I always believed in applying myself in the best way possible, and then let things happen. If it doesn't work out for me, it doesn't work out for me.
Right.
But as long as I'm giving integrity, basically, whatever action you do or whatever, wherever you invest yourself, invest with a lot of integrity to yourself, right? Don't do it in a way, if you're not if you don't have conviction and you don't really believe in what you do, forget about it, leave it. Forget about what people think about you, but just leave it, right? But whatever you do it with integrity, right? These are the three. Let me count.
There's definitely more than 3.
Yeah, according to me, these are the 3 most important things, right? The moment you make these things as a practice, where you're working towards, being more aware, and in other words, you can say like you have to be very conscious about what you're doing.
Yeah.
You just can't just like wade through time.
Sleepwalk through.
Yeah, sleepwalk through time.
Yeah.
You have to be really, really, be there,
Right.
in whatever you do. So the more conscious you are at what you're doing, irrespective of how big or small things they are, the better you are getting at receiving things or in accepting things.
Yeah.
Right. Then you have to be. So there's a hack into all this, that you have to be more empathetic. You have to be more compassionate to people or things around you, not just people.
Exactly.
Even from animals.
I wanted to expand that term empathy to receptivity, because when you say empathy, people may think it's restricted to living beings like animals, humans.
No, that's the reason I went with compassion again.
Exactly. So receptivity is basically you're like a sponge. You're soaking it in. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, when you're listening, and you do have to listen to be receptive, wherever you're listening, wherever you're observing, and you do have to observe, you're actually soaking those things in. You're soaking the world around you inside. And whether you realize it consciously or not, unconsciously or subconsciously, you are absorbing a lot more information than you realize. And that's the basic principle that advertising works on.
And then there is another thing that I want to add on to it. The more conscious effort you put in yourself, right, in improving yourself, or whatever effort you put in yourself, the first thing to actually get affected by it is your subconscious.
Right.
I don't know if I haven't heard a lot of people openly say this, but what I genuinely feel is the more consciously you're putting effort in your actions or in your thinking or your thoughts, the more subconsciously you keep getting better.
Yes.
It's almost like the best example I can give is, if you want to learn a language, start thinking in the language.
Yes.
If you want to learn better English, think in better English. Talk to yourself in that language.
Right.
And you will end up speaking or picking up the language faster.
Right.
It's a similar thing. The subconscious acts faster than your conscious memory, world or whatever.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So those are the 3 things for me. Be aware, be compassionate, or empathetic. Or you can say be compassionate and empathetic. And don't worry about results. Don't work for results. Work for efficiency. Work for putting the best.
Yeah.
Results are not the end goal, or results are not to be counted as the I don't know, what do you say, like the important parameter.
Right.
The important parameter is how much you have involved yourself.
Yeah.
Forget about result. If it doesn't come today, it will come later on.
Work for the joy of working, whatever you're working.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
It's a joy, bro.
And so apart from those 3 things that you mentioned, there are other things also that could help someone improve their chances of developing a better intuition. And to go into those, where you could say how attentive you are to the things around you, which is, I guess you already covered that in a way.
Yeah.
We've also talked about self-belief. There's something called active listening, and this is not something that a lot of people are aware of. But let's say you're listening to someone talk to you, but if you just listen to the words coming out of their mouth, you are not active listening. Active listening means you're not only listening to the words that are coming out of their mouth, but you're
But
also
spitting
listening.
in their mouth also.
No, that is your way of acting. But
So that you don't have to listen anymore.
but you're also very attentive to their body language. You're looking at their face, you're looking at their expressions, you're trying to read between the lines, and you don't have to consciously decipher anything. But if you're attentive enough to be open to those things, then subconsciously you will be absorbing those things. And that way you actually listen a lot better to a person, where you not only listen to the words that are coming out of their mouth, but you also listen to what they actually mean, or what they may be meaning.
And also the most important thing in observing and concentrating on the person who's talking is you start realizing the flaws he has in his face or
Right.
her face.
Right.
Which is amazing. It can make you hate a person. Like once you start observing them closely. Like now that I observe you, Bogus, the amount of fat you have on your right shoulder. It's horrible. I mean, I don't know how you pulled it off, but.
And that is what causes a distraction where you end up losing the message because you're distracted by
I am
superficial
representing the
features.
contemporary media.
Right. We're just giving an example to the people.
Yeah.
We're using our own cases as, because,
Metaphoric senses.
that's what we do.
Yeah, active listening. Yeah, I agree to that, but I think I covered it with in the concept of integrity or self-involvement in everything you do.
Yeah. And also it's important to call out integrity means being true.
Yeah.
And that's very important.
Be honest.
Because when you say integrity, again, it might be a bouncer, because now who knows the meaning of that word, but it means being true.
This is something that I observed. A lot of companies, I'm just digressing a little, a lot of companies talk so high about integrity,
Right.
but none of them bother to explain what it is.
Yeah.
I've seen in a lot of companies, principles or, mottos of the company that we are an integrity company, we are a company of a lot of integrity, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And nobody knows what it is. It's like, if you ask what is the integrity of the company, like almost everybody doesn't know about it.
In the corporate world, integrity is taken to mean policy compliant.
We agree to everything the company says.
As long as you
asks us
stick
to do.
within the boundaries of the company policy, you're working with integrity. That's basically how people digest that word. But it's not right. Integrity means you're being true, either to yourself or to the work that you're doing.
And to give you an example, a guy who has integrity will not be afraid to, not accept an idea or probably give his difference of opinion.
Will not be afraid to say no.
Yeah, will not be afraid to say no.
Will not be afraid to stand his ground
and
for
say no.
what he believes in.
Yeah, and he is how do you find a guy with integrity? He's the guy, when you go to a urinal and you try to ask for some privacy, then he won't give you that.
Yeah.
He'll stand his ground, do his business, not caring if he's coming into your privacy or not.
Exactly.
That's how you figure out a guy with integrity.
But pattern recognition is also another one of these inputs into how you could improve your intuition, or how you could make yourself a candidate that keeps receiving these messages with good frequency. You have to be able to recognize patterns, because there are patterns all around us. If you listen to the 21 episodes now of the ThyGap podcast,
you would have got a pattern.
You would have heard the number of times we've spoken about patterns.
Yeah.
There's a very good reason why we do that.
So if you want to know more about pattern recognition, listen to all the 21 episodes once again.
21
and
times.
You'll get to know 21 times.
Yeah. And it might sink in.
You know what? How I would put pattern recognition in the context of intuition. I would say look for the subtleties of the nature.
Right.
In the sense, again, I'm at loss of vocabulary to explain it better, but there is a lot of language kind of muddles up a lot of messages that the nature has to give. And you need to understand these messages more clearly.
Yes.
Right? Which is where I feel compassion or empathy will work as a very good tool for you to get those
Receptivity.
Receptivity, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So that is what we would call, that is what I would, I would replace pattern recognition as in the context of intuition. Be very be on the lookout for the subtleties of nature. There is, and that's the pattern recognition, right? Like whatever you see, if there is a pattern in the nature and you look closely, you'll find that pattern in yourself.
Yeah.
Right? Like the seasons, you function as a person
Yes.
in seasons, in patches.
Yes.
I don't know.
Yeah, human beings are part of nature, so we have a history.
Yeah.
And history is filled with patterns, things repeating themselves again and again. That gives you a huge clue into how things really work.
Yeah. And that helps you get intuition.
Yeah, and
we just don't know how, but
no, it's all these are inputs. These are like what do you call the prerequisites to? It's like a helipad. Right? Yeah.
When you see the big hedge, the pilot knows that he has to land it there.
Right.
It's the same thing. You need to draw that hedge on yourself so that the intuition knows that, yeah, I need to go to this person.
Yeah. You have
in a way, that's how it is.
You have to start by self-awareness. You have to know yourself in and inside out. And if you know yourself, it becomes easier for you to know what you want or what you need next. If you know what you want or need next, then that opens the ground for intuition to come in, but not just yet. After you know what you want, what conscious effort are you putting towards that goal? Have you done all the research that you should have done? Have you done everything possible to learn about the direction that you want to go in?
That's where integrity comes into the picture.
Exactly. So this is how all of these variables play into becoming inputs for ultimately you earning that intuition.
Yeah.
This is, of course, if you're not one of those people who's gifted with it, with birth. Some people, they don't have to put all these effort. They just
designed that way.
They got it in their DNA. It's hereditary. It tends to happen.
They are like the advanced versions of androids.
They just lucked out.
Yeah.
And some people, we know there are people who have won the lottery 2-3 times.
Yeah.
It's just, you can't explain. Some people are born with it, but then there's also a way to develop it or improve upon it. And there's another very important thing that is an input into intuition or improving it, which is freedom from judgment. And this is what plays a major role when you're trying to decide on something. It's also something that plays a major role when you're trying to work on getting the true measure of yourself. This is what we went into detail into the Measure of Man episode. But freedom of judgment basically means that if you're coming across a concept for the first time, you should not feel the rush to immediately conclude one way or the other. You have to start from a neutral place, evaluate it for its merit, rather than applying your own confirmation bias right away, thinking my friend came and introduced this concept to me and then also followed it up by saying he thinks it's a useless idea. So just because this is a good friend of mine and he thinks it's a useless idea, now I'm also going to think it's a no.
Yeah.
Separate the idea from the person, evaluate it neutrally, and then decide whether you agree or disagree.
This doesn't apply to Bogus because he's always judgmental about whatever I say. And that's the reason Bogus's intuition has been coming down extremely fast.
Mm-hmm.
That's all. That's just a...
On the contrary, it's been sharpened because I know how many times I've been right.
No. Bogus likes to boast. We are planning to change Bogus's name to Boasting Bogus.
Okay.
From Bogus no.
Mm-hmm.
Bogus.
And what is your name change, bro?
It's always going to be Being Brute. Being Brute.
Right.
But freedom from judgment, I would just say, like, how I would put it is, don't worry about the result. Like, sometimes just be an observer, be a bystander, and gaze into whatever is happening. Most of the times it so happens that the person who's looking at things from as a third person perspective seems to end up learning more about the conversation.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So try to be that person. Don't be in a hurry to be a contributor. Try to be a guy who can absorb a lot more than contributing. It works out. And it's a difficult thing, Bogus. It's not as easy as it's said.
If it were easy, I don't think there would be a Jiddu Krishnamurti quote about this, because his quote goes, to evaluate something without jumping to conclusions right away. I'm paraphrasing the quote.
Yeah.
He said it in a much better way.
Because if Jiddu Krishna were like to jump in, it's not like,
Yeah, he said it in a much better way. But
that would have been Mohammad Azharuddin who would have said the quote. It's like, you evaluate it, the boys played well,
yeah.
Conditions were not suitable to the bowlers,
But what he said was, if you're able to evaluate something without jumping to conclusion right away, that is the highest form of intelligence.
Yeah.
Is it a coincidence that intuition is called a higher intelligence? Is that what Jiddu Krishnamurti was talking about? Is that what he was talking about?
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah. And knowing Jiddu Krishnamurti is very cryptic. He doesn't tell things in a straight way. So you have to really, really step back and think about whatever he said for some time to get the juice out of his inputs.
Yeah, because there also you have to earn it.
Yeah.
And like they say, the master appears only when the student is ready.
Yeah, it was a tampy pitch, and Jiddu Krishnamurti once told me, Sachin, you played well, and I didn't understand it because I was not playing for the last 1 year, because of the tennis elbow.
Mm-hmm.
But he was talking about my recuperation.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sachin, for guesting on the ThyGap podcast. Very high-profile guest. Not sure how he managed to get you, but
well,
that's ThyGap.
And he left also.
So quick. Yeah, that Ferrari goes very fast.
Intense.
Yeah.
So anyways, that brings us to the end of Intuition.
Yep.
And if you have, to dear listeners, if you have any doubts, write to us at
mindthygap@gmail.com.
Good. And with that, ThyGap podcast. Subscribe.
And share. That brings us to the last segment of our podcast, the most popular, the most requested. Sometimes people just scroll directly to it, which is a little bit insulting. But it's the Parcel section.
The Parcel section. Honestly, this is one of my favorite sections. Only the first part of the Parcel section. The part where you start telling your parcel, I'm like...
You're checked out.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's not for you.
I know.
So Brute, you go first, as always.
As always.
What parcel do you have?
I have a very interesting parcel. And this is a last moment suggestion. I actually had other ideas.
Oh, okay.
But I just couldn't... Once I thought of this parcel, I couldn't overlook it.
Wow.
Right?
Such wonderful backstory.
It's a very emotional backstory.
No one asked
your
for.
Parcels.
Yeah.
Where you're sitting alone in your pajamas and then you're watching this movie. But anyways, my parcel for today's episode is a very underrated movie. Okay.
And
I'll tell you why it is underrated. The name of the movie is Mr. Church.
Okay.
And it is the lead actor of the movie is none other than Mr. Eddie Murphy.
Is that why it's underrated?
No, it's underrated because they didn't do promotions and they released in German first and then they did 10,000 other things.
Wow.
But potato, a lot of people don't know about this movie. Do you know about this movie, Mr. Church?
Nope.
Yep. It's released in 2016. That means that Eddie Murphy was already bypassed his prime age.
Right.
But that actually made him come out with a fantastic performance. It is unlike any of his other performances. It's a very serious, very emotional movie, you can say. The plot is very simple. So there's a mother and daughter. And the mother is kind of had an affair was in a relationship with a married man.
Okay.
So what happens, the movie starts off with the fact that the mother is written into the will of the married man when he died.
Okay.
Right? And the will, the thing that she gets out of the will is till she dies, she will get a cook called Mr. Church.
Okay.
Okay. Who is kind of like a friend to this guy.
Wait, is that the only thing in the will that she gets?
Yeah, that's the only thing.
That's pretty pathetic.
It's horrible.
Right.
But then she starts understanding why that only thing is also the biggest thing in the will.
Mm-hmm.
So this guy is this ridiculously charming, well-spoken, person who's extremely educated, multi-talented, but he kind of chooses to be a chef.
Okay.
Right? A simple cook who just cooks amazing food and all. So the thing is, this mother is diagnosed with breast cancer and she has about 6 months to live. So technically, this guy only has to cook for the mother or for the lady for 6 months.
Right.
Once she passes away, his job is to move on.
Right.
But they develop such a beautiful relationship within that 6 months that he kind of becomes the godfather for her daughter and makes sure like he sticks along with her for the rest of the life, whatever. Right?
Wait, do you mean romantic relationship?
No. It's just like a very healthy, very accommodating relationship. And, this person is dying.
Right.
So what kind of romance can you do to a
Why
dying woman?
Have you not heard of, what is that movie that they, Dil Bechara, the original of that movie also?
Oh, so have you ever heard of I'll Punch You in Your Throat?
No, I've never heard of that.
Yeah, because I think soon you will. But no, nothing of that sort. It's basically, like I said, it's a very good movie. So this guy becomes this acting father for the child who doesn't have parents.
Right.
And he kind of takes care of everything. He makes the girl into a strong woman kind of thing, right?
Okay.
It's a kind of a happy ending, but it's, at the same time, it's a little heavy on your heart when you watch the movie. What I really like about this movie, apart from the script and the taking or the technical aspects which you generally talk about,
the titles?
Yeah, the titles and the cast and crew and who was the spotlight, where did they buy the bulb for the lighting,
right?
Which mic they used and all that. It's a very unlike Eddie Murphy performance.
Okay.
And I'm a sucker for comedians doing serious roles because they bring a completely different kind of an emotion.
Right.
Or, there is a lot of weight in their performance. It's like Jim Carrey doing, Eternal Sunshine and Spotless Mind, which is unlike Jim Carrey, right?
Right.
And there's so many other roles of Robbie Williams, who has done like Good Will Hunting, very popular movie. And you see him in that, you're like, how can he even do comedy with this kind of, acting? So Eddie Murphy proved that in this movie. I never imagined I couldn't see Eddie Murphy in that kind of a role out of whatever movies he has done, right? So he plays this very coy, very, subdued gentleman but at the same time, he also communicated that he's a very intelligent guy who knows the ways of the world. And he puts all that into his cooking, right? And one of the beautiful things is for him, the secret of good cooking is jazz. So every time he cooks, there's a jazz music playing in the background. Okay. And he says jazz kind of like they show his love for jazz, and he's very meticulous, he's very clean, and he kind of has an almost has an OCD kind of a behavior. It's a slow movie. It's like a Sunday afternoon, brunch kind of a movie. You can't watch it with a lot of expectations. I mean, don't get too excited about it.
Amazing
Watch
Parcel,
it for
bro.
Eddie Murphy and his acting. The name of the movie is Mr. Church.
Awesome. Great Parcel recommendation by Brute, with a disclaimer that you should not get too excited about it.
I think this is the first movie I suggested where you don't know about it.
True. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And also
landmark.
The
milestone
first one
Parcel section.
Where you went beyond my usual parcel length, which is shocking.
Like I said, Bogus, sometimes, when you spend too much time with someone, their habits rub off on you.
Right, you get inspired is what you mean.
No, you get deteriorated from your original skill.
All right, so my parcel for this episode is a 1962 French movie. There you go. as if
Did you ever watch movies after like 1970 or 80? Did you watch Sholay?
I have
Or
watched
more recent
lots of movies, but unfortunately, if you want true originality and quality, you have to go back. So this movie, 1962, it was made in France. It's called La Jetee. La Jetee basically means the jetty. And the jetty is nothing but like an observation deck. So the weirdest thing about this movie is it's only 28 minutes long. The whole movie.
It's a short film.
No, it is a movie.
How? You mean to say it has interval also? Like at 14 minutes?
No.
Then it's a short film.
So this movie is only 28 minutes long, and
Why are you avoiding me? It's a short film.
It's a sci-fi movie.
Stop calling it a movie.
It is a movie.
It's a short film.
Let me get into the damn thing first
There
of
are
all.
BuzzFeed videos which are longer than 28 minutes.
So this movie is set in France, where it is post World War III, and there's been massive destruction all around, and people have resorted to living underground. If you don't know, under Paris there are a series of
Louvres.
There's a series of caves and walkways,
Louvres.
etc. So these people were living under there for survival, and the few scientists that are alive are trying to discover time travel because they want to basically either go to the past or to the future in order to save the present. Now, our protagonist, the hero, is a guy who is a prisoner of that war, and the scientists ultimately rely on him as a candidate for time travel because it turns out that not everybody has the stomach to withstand the
Indian spicy curries.
difficulties of time travel. They kind of disintegrate or they die. So this candidate, our protagonist, a prisoner, ends up being one of the only candidates that it actually works with. So when they induct him into this program, he says he first wants to go to the past, where he has a memory, a very distinct but very specific memory about this woman on a jetty at the airport. And there's something about that woman that he wants to go back to that place, that time. So they say fine, and they send him to that place. He ends up meeting that woman. At the airport, there's a jetty where she's standing. He ends up meeting her. He has a romantic relationship with her. And then is again brought back because they can't keep the time travel thing going on for too long. They have to keep bringing him back for his own survival. Now, the next time they send him to the future, and he meets the people of the future, the advanced civilization, who basically give him a unit of energy which they say will bring back his civilization from destruction. So he comes back thinking he is successful in his quest, but when he comes back, he realizes that because he was a prisoner, now it's time for him to be put to death. And in that turmoil, in that state of turmoil, the people from the future again reach out to him and say, we can help you escape. We can pull you back to our time in the future. But he says, no, I want to go back to that time. I want to go back to that woman, the woman I love on the jetty at the airport. So they send him back there one last time, and he sees the woman. There's utter chaos at the airport for some reason. And deep down, he knows why there's chaos, but he still doesn't realize it. All he's focused on is finding that woman on the jetty. And then he keeps searching for her, and ultimately he finds her. But then he also figures out that some agent from his present is also there. And he realizes danger. He thinks this agent is here to hurt him or to stop him from doing whatever it is he wants to do. And that basically is close to the end of the movie. I don't want to spoil the main thing.
Well, in a 28-minute movie,
yeah,
you told like 27-minute, 12 seconds.
But hang on, this movie, even though it is 28 minutes long, it is not even video. The story is told through static images throughout and narration in the background. And the reason why I didn't spoil the ending is because for a movie that was made in 1962, that was 28 minutes long and was full of only static images, It is one of the most shockingly original things I've ever seen in my life. And if you guys are aware of a movie called The 12 Monkeys with Brad Pitt, that movie was basically copied off of La Jetee. So I strongly urge you guys, if you want to see something very original and is only 28 minutes long, find this movie called La Jetee, 1962. You won't regret it.
Yes, guys, it's a very powerful PowerPoint presentation from 1962. It's primarily consisting of about 18 slides, which go for 28 minutes.
You will never regret it. Ignore everything he's saying. But watch this movie.
You just suggested a PowerPoint presentation.
No, this movie, the fact
How are you even calling it a movie?
The fact that it has only images, right? It forces you to
like skip to the end?
To get stuck with the image. Yeah, you can't move ahead until the movie allows you to see the next image. There is something to that. There is some power to that.
How difficult is it to go to the next slide?
No, it is the same effect.
How is a
if you're reading an amazing comic book or a graphic novel?
How is a PowerPoint presentation lasting for 28 minutes?
Watch the movie, Brute. I strongly recommend you watch this movie. You'll never forget it.
Okay.
All right, so that brings us to the end of our episode overall.
Yep.
Thank you all for listening.
And staying with us.
And stick around for the next one, because the next one's going to be a big one. And there's also a major surprise coming in the next one.
Absolutely.
I
think we should have told about the surprise in the beginning.
No, they have to listen to the next one for the surprise, where Brute and I will talk to you guys more directly.
One-on-one.
Just wait and watch.
Yep.
But until then, as we always say, ThyGap, subscribe.
And share.
And share. Hey, thanks for listening. You can follow this podcast on Spotify to get notified of new episodes every Thursday. We're also on Apple Podcasts for those of you who have partaken in the forbidden fruit. If you liked what you heard, leave us a 5-star rating and a comment. Say anything like the quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog. A rating and a comment really helps us out. It's free, and I'm told that's a great price. But enough about us, huh? Tell us about yourself. Leave us a comment. Our Twitter is @ThyGap, and we are _ThyGap on Instagram.